Hello, everybody. It is Matt Stranick with you for the first ever Today New Brunswick, Tomorrow the World podcast interview. So instead of my inestimable colleague, Dan Hayward, I'm joined here. I'm really, actually, legitimately stoked to be connected here with Chris Bose, a serious multidisciplinary, multi-talented artist, and kind of into the indie art in a major way across multiple disciplines. So to the extent that we're definitely here to talk about the musical endeavor, that's going to focus on it. But Chris, I just wanted to say, first of all, straight up, thanks a lot for being here, pal. It's totally a pleasure. Yeah, man. Um, if I was to ask you, first of all, just because of like, for people who don't know or who may just be familiar with sort of one aspect of your work, on an interview on the education podcast or whatever, I asked somebody just to sort of, if somebody was just to straight up ask you, you don't know them, who is Chris?
A wanker. That's a tough question. Just an artist and a musician, and someone just trying to make their way in the world.
Creative. An artist and a musician. Awesome. That's fantastic, because I've checked out some of your significant online presences, and to try and sort of distill that into one bullet point or whatnot. I just, I didn't want to make presumptions on it. So thank you for that. Now, I got to ask as well, having investigated the Bandcamp, I just, again, point of clarity, is it Horse Funeral, or do you prefer Horse Funeral Band as the title of the project?
Horse Funeral Band.
Radical. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Again, just from some of the positioning on the web formats and stuff, Horse Funeral Band. Now, speaking of which, I've been just listening to it straight for the past hour and a half, 2 hours. And at this point, it's fantastic stuff, man. It goes all over the place, literally. And I just really wanted to sort of ask for you, if we're going to sort of stick with sort of a chronological rendering of time or whatever, I guess, how long ago did you first get into this? Did this project sort of begin for you? And had you been doing music a lot beforehand? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Radical.
Well, I started way back when I was a young lad, back in the 80s, the old century in the old country, No, I've been playing guitar since 86, and then in a ton of different projects and tours and stuff.
Okay.
This Horse Funeral Band is newish. It started last year on 420 it's taking different directions, and I've been on tour since last June. The end of last June, we did our first gig here in town, and then I hit the road, and I've been off and on the road ever since. And it's changing our sound, and it's kind of now an ad hoc group of musicians.
Okay.
I kind of like just get to do shows with me, so it's not
right on.
Not just me up there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I was going to ask, because like what you described, I mean, so my kind of understanding of, how it's kind of been playing out. I mean, I've been following you on Instagram for a while, just because I spent a lot of time in Kamloops. My family and my kids are still based there. I worked at TRU for a number of years. And I think actually my first interaction or awareness of you as sort of a presence, an artistic presence in Kamloops, was at a TRU event involving Gary Gottfredson. He was doing some reading, and you opened for him in a reading capacity. And I just remember being like, totally like, man, this guy has some solid writing chops. And the fact that, somebody of Gary's significant literary profile was sort of supportive of that, is just really, to me, it was just a really cool thing. And then following your Instagram, following, your social kind of outputs, I just like, man, this guy's into some serious art. And then I did have the interaction with you, the occasion to actually reach out and through the Instagram, and we did a trade-off. I exchanged some monetary funds in front of the convenience store, the 7-Eleven, in Lower Sahalee, and that was just like the kind of it was a very special thing with that. I just enjoyed, and it was obviously awesome, beautiful book, well put together, amazing writing, and it was just really, again, I guess my real question is, I mean, how do you juggle all this stuff, and particularly since, as you say, you're on the road so much of the time now as a musician?
Well, to be based in Kamloops and to make a living being a creative person,
Yeah.
you can't just do one discipline. You'll starve. There's
Okay.
just not enough people here to make a go of it. So you got to diversify. And that's what I tell up and coming new artists is like, you've got to diversify your skill set. You got to learn different ways to create a stream of revenue for yourself. So I do workshops, and I do filmmaking, and I do art and music and writing just out of sheer necessity.
Dude, that is an absolutely pragmatic punk rock way of looking at it, I dare say. Again, it's almost like it's when I'm listening to the two awesome recordings of Horse Funeral Band on Bandcamp. First of all, what's your opinion of Bandcamp? I kind of dig it, man. I kind of dig it compared to, say, some of the other streaming services. I guess one thing that I would ask is, apart from Bandcamp, is your music available through other streaming services like Spotify and the like, or no?
No,
Okay.
It's just Bandcamp, man, because
Awesome. That is legit. I really have come to appreciate that because, like yourself, for some, serious-minded independent artists, there's just an absolute, it just seems like a way more artist-centered approach, a way of, getting music to people. And there's actually, it seems like you're almost part of a community, like almost pre-streaming-ish kind of vibe, right? So,
yeah.
And that's rad. And so when I'm listening to your recordings, I mean, there's there's the change of personnel that happened between the first demo recording, which sort of had a consistency about it, right? It's just sort of the female vocalist and acoustic guitars and some backing vocals, just really awesome indie folk music. Is that sort of kind of an apt description of it, or like,
Yeah.
do you see it within a folk paradigm, or where do you, for that first phase? Because again, the newer recording, complete departure, totally different. You speak to that, in the liner notes and whatnot. I see them both as being sort of within kind of folk paradigm, but maybe I'm missing something there. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's the first album is kind of EP, I guess, or whatever it is just born of necessity, acoustic guitars and vocals. That's just what we had to work with. And then you tour with that for a long time, and you just get sick of your stuff, and I get sick of it. I start changing keys, I start changing chords, I start changing the structure, I start changing the melody, and it's just me on tour because not everyone can tour, right?
Right.
And so I've kind of just taken it to a different next step, and that seemed logical with some experimental stuff, some instrumental stuff, some rudimentary remixes, because for those songs, we wrote them like boom, you know, started in 420 last year, and we were in the studio by the end of June.
Wow.
So, and there's still a bunch more stuff, you know, just sitting around that I haven't even got to. But I kind of felt like that had run its course.
Okay.
And so now I'm writing new songs, moving in new directions, and really enjoying it.
Well, and so as you say, I mean, the Songs for the Lost, that's the most, recent recording that's up on Bandcamp. And what I struck me from the very first notes of Cradle to the Grave, the first song, is like, man, this could so easily be like Master of Puppets era Metallica, with the, gothic reverby kind of intro, sort of classical guitar, like, and so I'm thinking, okay, this could have some sort of metal or aggressive guitar kind of elements to it. But I mean, it doesn't fit that neatly to it. Going then into, there's a couple of tracks at least that you're like, you show a real aptitude and affinity for friggin' like, I'm like, is this trip hop? Is this like electronic dance music? Like, is this like lo-fi house kind of stuff or what? And then, I mean, you get something like, obviously a very personal musical experience with something like My Father Before Me. I was like, where's the lyrics? Where's the lyrics? And there's no lyrics. And I'm like, man, that is like strategically kind of cool. And it seems like it's so all over the place. And so was that just sort of trying to capture those things where they are now? Or is that sort of like positioning, like, do you see yourself working on these further? You know what I mean? Is it sort of, do you see these things as ever being finished or just kind of pinned in time? You know what I mean?
They're a place in time, both albums.
Okay.
And just sort of, creatively and mentally where I was at. And I like to, like, the first album was live off the floor, one take, most of that stuff. The second one, same deal. I really like just sort of that live off the floor feel and just seeing where it goes with the sort of more electro, hip hoppy house stuff. It's,
For me, that came totally out of left field. I was like, any of the stuff that was on there, I sort of had to reconsider it because, like, wow, it's just, it seems like I keep thinking like musical omnivore when I hear that one, or, so I guess, you kind of spoken to, it seems like music is sort of very much central to your kind of our wider artistic endeavor. Clearly, you have such a wide knowledge of music just because of what you can hear, like through these demos and through these recordings. Who are some of your favorite artists growing up? Like, from when you were a kid, and into teen years, perhaps. Do you have like significant memories of like when music struck you as something that was A, super cool, and B, something that you were going to engage with?
Through the 70s, my dad introduced me to Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and that kind of stuff, Jimi Hendrix. And that really carried me through till the 80s. Then in the 80s, Metallica came out, and I got into Metallica around the Ride the Lightning, which was 84.
Perfect record.
And just amazing. And so that until the 90s, and then in the 90s, I got into I traveled a lot. I've been traveling my whole life. But I heard things like PJ Harvey, her album Dry really got me interested. I was like, wow, this is so powerful.
It is, absolutely.
just raw, it's a whole other direction from metal. And so I really dug that. Then Tricky, hip hop artist, and Caius, and in the 90s, who else? I got a little into world music. So I lived overseas for a bit, and traveling is really good for your brain because you get introduced to lots of cool different cultures and food and places.
100%, bro.
So I really dug that. Some hip hop from when I lived in the States. I lived in Austin, Texas. And so just, all the stuff that was coming up around the mid 90s, early 90s, like NWA and all that. Two Live Crew, I remember.
Two Live Crew. Bro, I don't know if that's something to brag about, or, I mean, I appreciate you being true to the thing, but I don't know, maybe it's still legit, 30 years later, but.
It's so crude and crass.
Just utterly, right? And intentionally so. If you got a gimmick and it gets attention, then, I mean, more power to the people who make it work. I mean, whatever your shtick is, and you can make a buck to feed the people around you and yourself, I mean, fair play, right? So totally, bro.
Yeah, that was the 90s.
So we're into the 90s, and then how do we get? So when do we see that you are starting to pick up an instrument, or like just guitar, like whatever? Because I mean, it sounds like, I know that you have like a lot of collaboration on the most recent record. You have quite a list a number of people you check off as contributing. As a musician, is the guitar your primary instrument? And when did you pick it up? When did you actually start songwriting or whatever?
1986. I really got into it in Vancouver. I was living on the streets for half a year.
Jesus.
And then my cousin took me off the streets and then gave me an acoustic guitar and showed me A minor, G, and F chords.
Awesome.
And then that changed my life. Within 6 months, I was playing in punk bands and touring and just giving her. And I've been giving her ever since. And then, so guitar is primary.
I've been giving her ever since. I think I want to make that like the the thing for the show almost. I want to put that on the masthead. And I've been giving her ever since. You must have some pretty rad memories of the 80s and 90s Vancouver punk scene. Can I ask you about that, bro?
Yeah. It's all kind of a blur because that's a long time ago now.
Did you ever catch were there any like memorable artists of the era besides you, obviously, that kind of resonate?
There was, of course, DOA, Dayglow, Art Bergman. I don't know, man. There's so many friggin' bands. And
were you like an early? Did you catch on to Skinny Puppy early on?
Oh yeah, yeah. Skinny Puppy, SNFU. I don't know, man. The Smalls. There's so many bands.
That's awesome.
In the 90s, in the 80s, I was in punk. And then as you play guitar and you get, I don't know, technically adept, you start, because I listened to punk and then I listened to metal. And then I was like, then GBH and who else? There's just so many bands, right? Hardcore bands. I got into hardcore for a long time.
Hardcore. See, me and my co-host Dan, I mean, we are, we dig a lot of stuff, but fundamentally, when I first kind of pitched this show to him, I was like, you want to do a punk music podcast? Because that's just our thing, since we were kind of these dirtbag, miscreant teenagers in Fredericton, New Brunswick, right? Just going to whatever all ages shows were around.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it sounds to me like, you've just been around between traveling all over the place, between contributing to these bands. It just sounds like maybe what you've sort of got now with the Horse Funeral Band recordings is sort of a venue to sort of take some of these experiences and have some continuity with it and just sort of keep moving it forward. So when you travel, it's just yourself gigs, or do you kind of bring certain configurations of musicians with you where you can? I mean, what's the live setup like now, if I can understand?
Right now, it's because I've been touring so long. I've been doing this forever, and I know a lot of people all across Canada. Different cities, and Horse Funerals acoustic punk. 3 chords and kind of an attitude. Just give her
3 chords of the truth. Yeah.
Yeah,
Man.
and you just got to give her, and so it's changing. I'm always trying to figure out what next to do. Like in the 90s, I was part of a Indigenous industrial band called Structure.
Radical. Is that like? Does that have like links to the internet on it or anything? Because like that just sounds rad. But
Nah, there's only 2 of us left alive. The other guys have died, unfortunately.
yeah.
And I don't know where the other kind of leader was. I don't know where he is anymore. He might be dead too. Who knows? But I did tour quite a bit. We were really heavily influenced by Skinny Puppy, and it was fun. We did that for a couple of years, and then
Awesome.
then I got back into metal bands. Then I joined a folk rock band, and then I got back into metal, and then I don't know. I'm just always seeking something, and I really feel like Horse Funeral's the way to go right now.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's just me mostly. But
Okay.
where I tour, I have friends, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be in town. You want to come do a couple shows with me?
There we go. That's so you may have some people joining up with you on some of those engagements, eh?
Yeah, every show is different, man. Every show, it's like sometimes they're gong shows, and then sometimes they are really, really fun. Like I've had people play theremin. Buddy of mine does theremin. I've had backup singers, acoustic guitars, drums, bass, keyboards, all kinds of stuff. Like anything goes. I'm up for anything. I just, like I said, 3 chords, keep it simple, keep it honest. Most of the time it's all like just before the show, friends will meet up and I'm like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. I'll just slam some chords and then we'll do it. We'll just get up on stage and rock out and have fun, and that's really exciting to me. I don't like. I'm not into rigid song structures right now. Like I'm changing Horse Funeral songs all the time because I've toured. You play them 100 times, you're just like, oh. So I'm making all different kinds of versions of them. Punk versions, ska versions, lullaby versions, metal versions. And just changing, like I said, I changed the keys, the chords, the structure, the melodies, everything, because I can. And it's more fun that way.
Because you can. That is awesome. And I just kind of, I dig how you just kind of refer to it, as acoustic punk, because I mean, that is a legitimate and wide-ranging subgenre. I just sort of like, as somebody who kind of just turned 46 this past weekend, you can't just sort of be motivated by the same things that drove you when you were in your 20s. It just becomes old hat really quickly. I mean, that's just for me as a listener, right? Like I just find myself gravitating, towards music by punk guys who are now playing acoustic music. I'm like, okay, it's folk music, but it's you know the real stuff when it's there, right?
Yeah, totally.
I got to ask, bro. I mean, in terms of being a Shikwemek individual, in terms of being an Indigenous person who's been working in Indigenous spaces culturally. I mean, I don't mean to say like how does that influence your writing, but I mean in terms of like instrumentation, in terms of like, where song ideas even come from, or how you position yourself as an artist? I mean, your indigeneity. I mean, what's the factor there? How does it play? I mean, not to be, ridiculous, but do you kind of get what I'm saying there, bro?
Yeah, yeah. I guess the indigeneity part is, 2 feet and a heartbeat, and then just my lived experiences with the lyrics, and then even the instrumental stuff, and and I'm really like I did some shows recently here in Squepum Territory, couple
Yeah.
of festivals, and I had a dude, he was Treaty 6, Indigenous guy. He played hand drums, and I'm like, hey, bro, man, we're hanging out back in the green room, just waiting for our turn to go on stage, because festivals are like that, and they're always kind of a gong show. You got time to kill. And so I was like, hey, do you want to come up on stage with me and do hand drum? And, just do whatever you want, really. And he was like, yeah, man, I'm down. And so we ran through a few songs, and I'm like, how about these two? And he's like, yeah, man, let's do them. So he came out and sang and did hand drum, and it just fit, man. It just fit, like the beat and the percussive nature that I play, because I play very percussively, like. So it's the beat, that's the constant, I guess, Indigenous part of the music that I create, and then the songs and the content of the songs: longing, heartbreak, searching, learning, and it's all in there.
And that's where, and I mean, those are things that you've also, investigated and explored through your literary work too, right? I mean, through your, so I mean, in terms of the writing, you have various projects that are out in the world. Do you see like the writing, like the poetry or prose or hybrid formats that you've sort of put out there? Do you see that as sort of being like kind of a separate mental and artistic process from the songwriting completely? Or I mean, how does that play? Because I just do writing and podcasting, and neither of them really well. So I just wonder, music, and then with all the various literary stuff.
I really like your blog, man. I've been reading it and checking it out. You're a good writer. It's really good. It's entertaining, and it's punchy and smart, and I dig it. So yeah,
I appreciate that.
You got it. You know what's up. As for my creative endeavors, yeah, I can only do one at a time.
Okay, I was wondering. That's
like I only write a book every 5 years, just because I need to live. Every book is a lived experience, right? The poems, the stories, the prose.
absolutely.
It's all like what I see and what I experience, and so every book is different.
Okay.
And some guys like Gary Goffertson, awesome, love his writing. I don't know how that guy does it, man. He cranks out books like
A
crazy.
book a year, it seems like, with him, right?
Yeah,
Every 2 years.
And I just don't have that capacity, because I'm a dad, and we got to work, and I got to do stuff, and so I tend to like go through phases where like I'll do like a creative burst of writing for a month or two or a week.
Okay.
That's it. And then I'll play guitar, or I'll do art, but only that one practice at a time, because I think that's all my brain can handle. It's
Man, I totally hear you on that one, pal. That's
so
it.
Right now I'm concentrating on music, and it's something I haven't done for a while, so I'm really happy to be back in it and touring, and seeing friends and seeing places, and just the lived experiences of being a creative person. So yeah, right now I'm doing this. I kind of have a hankering because I film when I'm on tour because what else is there to do? You're traveling. And so I put together little vignette videos of life on the road. And so I think something will come of that. So there'll be some music and some video. And then the next book, I'm sort of thinking of the next book a little bit. I wanna, I don't know, it's gonna go in a different hybridized, way as well. Maybe some fiction and some prose. I don't know. I mean, sky's the limit. I really feel like you should just do what you want and not worry about it, And if someone reads it, cool. If no one reads it, whatever. At least you did it, right? It's good for the soul. It's good for the soul.
That is 100% legit. And again, I really appreciate the references you made throughout, our chat here about just the what it's kind of like being a creative individual, because that's, for me, when it comes to, some kind of education thing that I put out, it's just like, once you kind of put it out there, it stops being yours, in a way. And the value that you get from it is just that you got to experience doing it, that you got to be alive and just friggin', be able to do something utterly unique and utterly cool, right? So, man, I've enjoyed this chat a lot. I want to, keep to my word of making this 30 to 40 minutes. I guess what I would just sort of ask, sort of as we begin to wind down, you kind of spoken to some of the ongoing projects. I do wonder, for the Horse Funeral Band, if there's any, concert or gigs or anything coming up that you wanted to speak to. I noticed that you have a Patreon account as well. I mean, we're gonna put all your links and stuff, on the web post. So I won't get into listing them off now. So between the Bandcamp though and the Patreon, God help me, man. I noticed you got a TikTok. I mean, I say God help me only because I associate that with the youth, and so I guess, like, are there, and as well, obviously, your website, your professional website, personal website. I guess I would just ask, is there anything that people should know about the Horse Funeral Band or about you with your artists and platforming and upcoming stuff before we close her down?
Well, I've got my first show here in Kamloops in a year coming up, June 15th. And then I'm playing the Salmon Arm Roots and Blues Festival, July 26th, 27th.
Awesome.
And then I'm looking at relocating out of Kamloops to Calgary, Treaty 7 territory. And then I've got, I kind of have like a home base there with friends.
Okay.
DJs and electronic musicians and acoustic musicians. Like Calgary's really embraced what I'm doing. And I played there about a dozen times in the past year.
Really? Wow. Calgary's an awesome town for a lot of respects. I mean, I guess just in terms of sort of coming up with sort of a more sustainable model financially, even as being an artist, as you say, right? And an independent artist in Canada is just, I just can't fathom, really. I know people who are doing it, and it's just my hat is always taken off in the presence of that, just because of what it entails. But I mean, Calgary is just, it's in terms of the location, in terms of just having a much larger number of people. It's got what, 200,000 or something to that effect, right? So it's almost double the size of Kamloops.
Oh, easily.
So that's some exciting news, pal.
Yeah, and there's from Calgary you could go tour all the way to Winnipeg, no problem.
Yep. Come
down to the coast, go through the southern interior, Edmonton. It's a little more central than here. It's got a great music scene. They're a real meat and potatoes crowd. They're really, really great bands, great people. Vancouver I played as well. Like, God, I don't know how many times. Easily a dozen times in the Okanagan too. But I really found my stride in Calgary. So got to go where
Awesome.
you're loved. Got to go where you're loved, man. You know.
For sure.
And it's. I look forward to it. So we'll see what's going on, and Horse Funeral is going to continue and change and adapt and tour and make music. And the overarching goal is to just keep going. You know, I want to go to Europe. You know, I want to go overseas and tour and play music and stuff. So gonna keep giving her.
Radical.
What else is there to do?
You got to keep giving her is what you got to do, friend. I think that is about the best possible way to end our conversation here. Chris, it has been just such a rad time speaking with you. I've really enjoyed this a lot. Thanks a lot for being part of our first ever interview on this show. We actually have some more kind of cool folks kind of in the offing for the program, which I think when I can actually speak of them publicly, it's just going to be a cool thing. I'd almost say though, bro, in terms of the writing and multidisciplinary art, I think I'm going to have to grab you if you're amenable to it for the education podcast, just because we kind of take a punk-like viewpoint on culture stuff, not specifically to do with music, right? So,
yeah.
If you're amenable, pal, not to make demands, you're a busy man, and you've
no problem.
You've been humorous us a lot here for these nearly 40 minutes. Man, yeah. I'm so stoked you were able to join me for this. Thank you so much, man. Anything else you wanted to say before we shut her down?
Thanks for the opportunity to, you know, talk a bit about the Horse Funeral and some of the other creative stuff I'm working on. And you keep on keeping on too, man. I really like your blog. I want to share it if that's cool. You know,
100%. That's literally what it's for. Man, that is rad. Everybody, you really do have to check out Horse Funeral Band 1, is it, on the Bandcamp?
Yeah, Horse Funeral Band 1.
Radical. It's all going to be in the notes. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.
See ya.